Living in Niceville, Florida will become a lot easier if you know these inside tricks. Trust me, by the end of this video, you guys will most definitely be thanking me. Whenever you're moving to a new location, it's so difficult to understand if you're actually going to like that area or not. So whether you visited Niceville, Florida, or just the Emerald Coast in general, and you know this is the sort of vibe that you're looking for, then this video might be perfect for you, especially if Niceville is one of those options. Niceville is great, particularly for retirees and families. Now, that's not everybody that's going to live there and enjoy it, but that does seem to be a large portion of it. So if you're looking for a great spot with amazing schools, things like that, or you're looking for an outstanding place to retire and still be able to get to the beach pretty quickly, then this is a great video for you. So let's actually start out with that as the first hack. What are the best neighborhoods to live in if you're moving with a family? As I mentioned, Niceville is great for folks with families. In fact, it was ranked #1 in all of Okaloosa County as best place to raise a family. And that's with good reason. There are many, many neighborhoods that are great for raising a family, but I have chosen 3 specifically that I personally feel like are outstanding. The first one on my list is actually one of my absolute favorites when it comes to people moving to the Emerald Coast with a family. And this is all of the Emerald Coast, Pensacola to Panama City, right? Out of all of these neighborhoods, Parkwood Estates is one of the best ones, I believe, for raising a family. Now, we just did a longer video on Parkwood Estates, so if you'd like to have that ready, we're going to throw it up here in the cards. It's a little gray box that pops up. You can click that and set it in another window, finish watching this one, and then check out Parkwood Estates. You're not going to be upset. It's got water features. It's a gated community. It's got several different parks and areas to hang out in, walking trails, great sidewalks all over the place, and it's filled with families. And probably because they have a school right there in the middle of the neighborhood. In fact, the neighborhood itself has its own special access to the school that the kids can ride their bikes up. You'll literally, when you're driving into the neighborhood on the left side, see tons and tons and tons of bicycles sitting there. And it's from people living in Parkwood Estates, or the kids living there that are going to school. Now, don't worry, everything's safe. They close, they lock it up, chain it up, all that good stuff. But what a great feature to have where you've got a school that you can drop the kids off at, or they can literally ride or walk to school every single day. The second neighborhood that I think is great for anybody with kids, particularly a little bit older ones that are a little bit more active, maybe they want to go play with their friends outside, which I don't even know if kids are doing that these days, but is Blue Water Bay. Blue Water Bay is a huge, huge neighborhood, and it's got so much to offer, it'll make your head spin. It's got more pools and more tennis courts than I know what to do with, a tennis club, pickleball. It's got, like I said, pools. It's got its own restaurant, LJ Schooners, right on the water, so you can get amazing views of the sunset and enjoy some live music, eat some oysters. Blue Water Bay just has it all. And it's very large roads as well, so that you can share it with the other bikers and walkers. There's sidewalks and street lights everywhere, so it's a very safe sort of feeling neighborhood. And it's got its own golf course, which, if you know me, that's always an added bonus. And lastly is a neighborhood that we haven't talked about on this channel in, I don't know, probably a year or two. And of course, that's because we're doing videos of all of the different cities, so we don't get to it all the time. But it is Swift Creek. I particularly like Swift Creek for people that are going to have college-age kids because it's right down the street from a college here in Niceville. So if you want to keep your college-age kids at home and so that they don't get distracted during their studies, this is a great option. Of course, there are options for them to stay nearby as well in apartments and things, but having them here at home is great. But don't worry, if you've got younger kids, then this is also a great option because it's actually right down the road from probably the largest park in our area. And I'm not just talking Niceville, I'm talking about the Emerald Coast. This thing is huge. It's got, splash pads, it's got an obstacle course, it's got, of course, playgrounds, lots of areas to go running and walking around, and it's even got a bubble machine. I'm not making this up. You press a button, bubbles come out. It's a great time. So a great spot for you to find other kids for your kids to hang out with, which is always a really good thing when you move to an area because, sometimes it's a little bit harder making friends at school. So this gives you another option to get them out and socializing with others. This next hack is probably one of the better ones that I wish I would have found out much earlier when I moved here. There is a news/media company out here in the general area that most of us locals get all of our local news from. In fact, he's got over 47,000 followers on Facebook alone. And that news media company is called Get the Coast. My buddy Jared does it. Great dude. Lots and lots of great content. Everything from like road closures and what's going on in construction to what's going on in our school districts to just local happenings in the local area. I mean, heck, if you're even just looking for the best neighborhoods to go driving around to look at beautiful Christmas lights, they've got you covered here at Get the Coast. At the end of the day, if you want to figure out everything that the Emerald Coast has to offer and all the little ins and outs, which are particularly useful while you're living here, it might not help you before you guys are ready to move here, but it might give you a little taste, a little insight into, sort of everything that's going on here. But the point is, Get the Coast will not stray you wrong. Speaking of staying informed, don't forget to smash that subscribe button if you're finding this helpful. We do these videos every single week on Tuesday. Drops at 4 p.m. Central Time so that you can get all of your news about the Emerald Coast, everything from Pensacola to Panama City and everything in between. Make sure you slap that subscribe button so you don't miss out. The next big hack that I want to talk to you guys about involve the HOA and, of course, taxes. I think talking about both of these is always very important because, number one, it's just part of the budget process, which is very important when you're moving to a new area. And number two, a lot of people maybe have not lived in an HOA community before, which not every community out here is an HOA community by any means, but Niceville does have a higher concentration of them, so I think it's important to discuss. And then, of course, with taxes, nobody wants to move to an area and have their taxes shoot through the roof or have them, keep rising and get priced out of their own homes. So I want to kind of touch on both of those, give you guys a couple of little insider tips on how to help in both of those situations. So first and foremost, property taxes are typically lower here in Niceville than they are in other metro cities in Florida. They're not dramatically lower, but they are lower, which is a great thing. Now, there are three key factors that are going to go into your property taxes here. It is the assessed value of the home, which doesn't necessarily mean the full value of the home. They generally take out the land portion of that. And then, of course, you've got the millage rate. This is the actual rate that the taxes are for that particular part of town. And then lastly, any tax exemptions you have, which we've got several out here. Most notably is the homestead exemption. The homestead exemption is great because it keeps your taxes from rising too much every single year and also gives you a pretty good discount so that you're not paying as much in taxes. Now, you do have to become a Florida state resident, so typically you've got to change over your driver's license and your vehicle registration, and then you can apply for homestead exemption, which it says apply as if you're winning some lottery or something, but it goes to everybody that's a Florida resident, assuming that your home is actually your primary home. Once you do that, it will go into effect in the next calendar year. You've got until, I believe it's March to be able to fill it out, and then it would start that next November. So it would lower your taxes there, lower the amount of taxes that you're paying in several different categories, as well as preventing your taxes from going up more than 3% every year. So if somebody gets into office or they vote on something that says, hey, we need to jump the property tax up 4% this year to reach, inflation or catch up with inflation or something like that, don't worry, you will be safe at just 3%. And this is exactly why when you're home shopping here in the state of Florida, that sometimes you'll see very similar properties and one of their taxes are considerably less while another one's higher. And that's generally because this person's got it homesteaded and this person does not. Homestead exemption is not the only exemptions that we have here. We've got a ton of others: disabled vets, widowed, a bunch of other things. You can go to the Okaloosa Property Appraisers website to check everything that they've got to see what you might qualify for. And that website is OkaloosaPA, just the letters PA.com. Now, let's switch gears a little bit before I get into some of the insider tips here. Let's talk about HOAs for a moment. HOAs are great or terrible depending on how you feel about them and what your thought process is. On one hand, folks that love HOAs are like, hey, great, it keeps everybody in line, keeps the neighborhood looking beautiful. Just make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, what they should be doing for their neighbors in general. But on the flip side, a lot of other folks are like, hey, I don't want anybody telling me what to do or when to take in my trash or how high my grass can be or whatever the rules happen to be at an HOA. Some people are very, very, very against them. Don't worry, here in Niceville, there's options for both, and just like there is everywhere here on the Emerald Coast. So if you are on one boat or another, don't worry, we've got you covered. Now, what do the HOAs here in Niceville typically cover? Of course, they're going to vary wildly depending on which neighborhood we're talking about, but some of the more common things that they generally cover are private amenities such as like pools, tennis courts, pickleball courts, just things like that. Landscaping is also very popular. That's a very common HOA thing as well. And then, of course, a portion of those fees might go into the accounting portion of basically managing the HOA in general. Now, as I mentioned, the fees are going to be all over the place depending on what type of neighborhood it is, where the neighborhood is, what amenities they offer, is it gated, is it not, things like that. For instance, a single-family home HOA and a condo association might be completely different. The condo might actually be more, which is surprising to a lot of people because they're like, I'm getting a whole house over here. I'm just getting an apartment, essentially. It's a condo, right? Over here, and I'm paying more. And a lot of that is because they've got to keep up with the building. They've got to keep up with the outside. So just note that those are going to be a little bit different. And being in a more established neighborhood like Blue Water Bay or Rocky Bayou or Swift Creek or something like that, sometimes those are going to be a little bit higher because they want to maintain a certain level of standard there in the neighborhood. And some of them are going to be very strict and some are going to be very not strict at all. In fact, we have HOA communities here that don't have any rules. They're just there just in case that they need to do stuff, or at least it's very limited rules is what I should say. Nothing that most people would balk about. First neighborhood I ever lived in was like that. My HOA was $20 a year. That was it. It was basically just there in case somebody started doing something crazy, lighting vehicles on fire in their front yard or something, that we could go in there and stop them. Obviously, if somebody's lighting their vehicle on fire in the front yard, the firemen are probably going to stop that. But you kind of get the point where it's just there as like a fail-safe, while you have other neighborhoods that are very strict. They're going to tell you how long your trash can be outside and that it's got to be covered and what additional attachments you can put on your property or fixtures and how high your fence can be. And heck, even if you can have pets or not. So my biggest tip for you, if you are moving down here, not just in Niceville, but anywhere in the state of Florida or anywhere that's got an HOA, make sure you're reading through that so that you know that it's something you're okay with. One of the worst things that you can do is move into an HOA and find out, oh, hey, I didn't know that I had to hide my trash cans. I didn't know that my fence couldn't be this high or whatever the thing is, and it drives you nuts. And then you end up wanting to move out of that neighborhood. It's not a financially smart decision. So we'd rather you know up front and be okay with all of these changes before you move into an HOA community. So a couple of insider tips on taxes and HOAs. Number one, as I mentioned, read through the entire HOA document, every freaking page if you need to make sure that it matches everything. And if you're going to be in a condo and you've got pets, definitely make sure that you're looking for that because there are condos in Niceville that don't allow pets. So that would be a very terrible thing to have to leave Fido somewhere else or have to buy another property and sell that one and take a loss on it because we didn't look at all of the rules. Regarding pets, I don't know of any other rules for the other HOAs for our neighborhoods that have any restrictions on that, but it's still good just to double check. A lot of people don't look at the finances at all. It's actually something that we always do for our clients, but a lot of real estate agents don't think about that with their people. And it's kind of dangerous because if you're in an HOA community with poor financing, they're overspending, they're losing money month after month, year over year, then eventually they're going to have what's called a special assessment when they need to get something done and they don't have the money. Special assessments here in our area are a little bit more common on condos than they are in single family neighborhoods or townhome neighborhoods, things like that, but they still can exist. A special assessment is essentially the HOA saying, hey, we don't have money for this, but the pool needs to be redone. So we're going to have everybody chip in a little bit so that we can update this pool and get everything done that we need to get done. And as I mentioned, more common in condos because they've got to worry about the outside and the roof, and it's not that difficult to mismanage the funds a little bit. Although it's pretty rare out here, it's still something to consider. And a little tip for taxes outside of the homestead exemption is buying newer or updated properties. This seems backwards because if you buy a newer or updated property, your taxes are actually going to be higher. The reason I say this is a little bit of an insider tip is because a lot of times the offset for the extra taxes that you're paying, because with the new construction, you pay a little bit more, maybe a completely updated home, it's obviously going to be worth more. You'll pay a little bit there, but you're going to save money in other areas. A new home or an updated home, for instance, is generally going to be better on your utilities. It's going to be sealed a little bit better. The air conditioning is going to work a little bit more efficiently because it's a newer unit, stuff like that. Newer homes and updated homes are generally going to be more efficient with all of your utilities, whether it's the fact that the windows are newer, the insulation's better, the air conditioner's newer, all of that. It's going to save you a little bit of money in utilities. Not to mention you're going to have low repair costs because, well, the roof's probably new, windows new, especially if you bought a new construction. Obviously, it's all going to be new. So it's going to be that much longer until you need to replace something. And lastly on this, buying a new or newly updated property is typically going to make it a little bit more competitive and boost your resale value depending on how long it is until you sell it. Obviously, if you wait 30 or 40 years and what you bought that was fresh and updated in 2025, in 2055, for instance, that's probably going to be outdated. So obviously there's limits on that. But if you're only going to be here for a few years, or, like a lot of folks that kind of buy one, they move, they upgrade, take the equity from one, go to another, etc., then it's going to be great for resale value down the road. Understanding taxes and HOAs are just one small piece of the puzzle, and it's actually something my team and I specialize in. So if you are thinking about moving to the area, all of my contact information will pop up on the screen. Please feel free to reach out. You can call, text, or a carrier pigeon, however you'd like to get a hold of us, and we will get the process started. All right, hack number 4, hidden waterfront access points. This is so cool because Niceville has so many little hidden spots, just like a lot of our little towns do. Like the locals kind of know where to go and kind of hang out to avoid some of the crowds. And we don't generally talk about it that much. I do a little bit in some of the cities, but I haven't yet about Niceville. So here are a few hidden access points that you should know about if you decide to move down here and become a local. The first of our hidden waterfront access points is Fred Gannon Bayou State Park. Though this one is definitely a little bit less hidden than the other two we're going to talk about, it is still something that once you go there, you just can't believe how beautiful it is. You just really like it, especially if you're an outdoorsy person. This state park has a very serene and beautiful trail that leads to a waterfront area that is great for, kayaking, just sitting there and having a picnic, or even dropping a line in the water. Now, I'm going to be honest here. It is not the beaches of Destin. Like, this is not one of those secret hidden little coves that nobody knows about where you're getting access to the Gulf of Mexico, because Niceville's not on the Gulf of Mexico. It's in the bayou, or that's what most of the water surrounding it is the bayou. So you're getting a different kind of beach. It's not going to have the waves. It's not generally going to have the nice powder white sand, although a lot of times you'll get a couple of feet of that. It's just not going to be the exact same as going out to, let's say, Destin. But the big advantage here is it's a lot less crowded and a heck of a lot more peaceful. And the best part is you don't have to drive very far to get to it. The beaches in Destin aren't that far. Depending on where you're at in Niceville, it might be as short as 25 minutes. But that's still 25 minutes. And if you're just trying to pop over and have a nice little picnic with a beautiful view, then doing it right here in town is a great idea. Number 2 on my list is the Turkey Creek Nature Trail. Another one not as hidden. This one a lot of people drive by, but it kind of just blends in with the surrounding, so we don't often notice it. This one is a nice little hidden gem that has a boardwalk on the water, and it's great for swimming, kayaking, paddleboarding, things like that. And lastly in the list of hidden waterfront access points is Blue Water Bay Marina. This is a great spot to rent a kayak or even drop a boat in the water. It does have a boat ramp there. Or, of course, have a great meal with an amazing view right there at LJ Schooners. LJ Schooners is so cool. It's a little oyster bar. It's got a bunch of other foods, too, including, like, key lime pie and, fresh fish and things like that. But it's got amazing views, and a lot of times they do live music as well. There's places outside to play cornhole and Connect Four and things like that. And it's just overall a great spot. And of course, beautiful, beautiful views, especially if you get there around sunset. You can actually watch the sun setting over all of the boats there at the marina. It's so beautiful. If you'd like to know more about little hidden spots and some of the locals' favorites, make sure that you're following us on Facebook and Instagram. We actually put a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff for the channel on that, as well as some of the spots that my team and I are going to regularly, the locals' hangouts and the little hidden spots, and we showcase them on social media. So if you're on social media, don't be afraid to follow us. We'll throw, our little handles up here on the screen somewhere. All right, the last little hack that would make your life so much better when you decide to move here is knowing some of the cool entertainment options out here. Now, there are so many here in Niceville and, of course, the surrounding areas, but I wanted to focus specifically in Niceville, and I wanted to just kind of bring the top 3 that I felt were very valuable and kind of inexpensive, sort of. So for the first one, longtime viewers of this channel have heard me talk about it before. It's my favorite event of this entire area, or one of them. I definitely like some of the other ones as well. But Niceville does one that's very specific, and it hasn't been around the last couple of years, but they are bringing it back in 2025, and that is a Boggy Bayou Mullet Festival. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking the mullet, with the hair and all of that. It is not that kind of mullet. It's actually celebrating mullet, the fish, which is a very delicious, kind of personal size fish. I don't even know if that's what you call it. It's very bony. It's a little bit difficult to eat for me. I'm not a big fan of all the bones, but it is delicious nonetheless. They smoke it out there. They fry it out there. You can get tons of mullet. And of course, it's kind of like a, I don't know, like a carnival. And it's got rides, and it generally has a concert with very, very big names. I've seen some really big names out there. It generally leans a little bit on the countryside, although not always. And they've had some pretty big headliners out there. And of course, on the other side, when you're not at the concert, there is a place to grab delicious beers. And, you can play all the games. You can play all the carnival games. You try to win stuff, climb the ladder, shoot out the little star with the BB guns. And then, of course, some of the carnival style rides like the Zipper and the Magic Funhouse and things like that. Then a lot of the local artists and local shops will also set up tents and stuff there to sell their products, so you can do a little bit of fun local shopping there as well. This is generally done in like October, which is always hit or miss because we're either still pretty warm or we're going through our first cold front for the week. I swear that cold front has landed on the Boggy Bayou Mullet Festival like 4 years in a row, and then it all of a sudden got warm after that. So just note that if you are coming, you're visiting family or something, or you just decide to go, just make sure you watch the weather because you don't want to get stuck out there while it's freezing. All right, number 2 on my list for entertainment options is Third Planet Brewing. Third Planet is a great local brewery here. They have a really good setup. Ever since they've opened, they've been really, really popular. It's got a great indoor section with lots and lots of beers on tap of all sorts of different types of beers as well. It's got an outside area where you can go sit at a picnic. They've got the heaters out there. They've got cornhole. They've got just a bunch of fun stuff to do. It's kid and pet friendly, and they always have really good food trucks out there. And of course, local brews. So that's always a plus, if you're into that. And the last entertainment thing on my list that I think will help a lot of folks that are thinking about moving out here is all of the golf. There's a ton of different golf out here. There are 3 pretty notable golf courses. I believe there might actually be a couple more that I'm missing out on. But the big 3 that I generally think of when it comes to Niceville are Blue Water Bay. They've got a great one, and it's a little bit inexpensive. It's the golf club at Blue Water Bay. It's about $50. It kind of ranges, of course, but 50 seemed to be about the average. And nice little course, no frills. It's beautiful. It's just a beautiful course. It's a good time in general, and it's not so expensive that it makes you want to puke. Although $50 is a little bit on the high side for this area, in Niceville, it's actually not that bad. The second and my personal favorite here in Niceville is the Eglin Air Force Base Golf Course. You would have absolutely no idea that you're in the middle of Florida when you're on this course because there's actual hills, there's actual trees. Like it's kind of crazy. It's a little bit different than some of the other golf courses in the area. And the best part is they don't charge an arm and a leg. It is just $35 for civilians. And then, of course, military members are going to have different prices based on your rank. And I believe it's just mainly rank. I think that's like kind of the big one. But it's just such a beautiful course. When you really get out there, you're just like, it's almost like you're in a different world. It's a little bit north of Niceville, so they do have a little bit of hills and stuff, which add to the golf course appeal. And of course, if you're looking to spend a little extra money with the Rocky Bayou Golf Course, it's generally around like $90 for 18 holes. Beautiful, beautiful course. Personally, for me, it's just a little bit higher price when I could just go over to the Eglin one. But if you're trying to try out all the different golf courses, that is one you do not want to miss. It's gorgeous. Lastly, if you are considering a purchase out here along the Emerald Coast and you're giving us a call, make sure to mention our Buyer Advantage program. We're going to go over it anyway when we sit down. But the Buyer Advantage program offers a lot of things. We help you move. We provide discounts to local and national companies through our Emerald Advantage card and 7 other massive advantages for the folks that give us a call here from YouTube. So don't miss out on that if you are thinking about moving to the area. And again, we'll throw up all of our information on the screen. I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you next week, Tuesday at 4 p.m. See ya.